Good morning, everybody. Once again, we apologize to all those who are interested. As usual, it took a little while of discussions and homework before we could get to this part of the day. Our plan at this point, well, first we'll go with roll call, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do.
Good morning, members of the committee. It's December 15th. Representative Kinner.
Here.
Representative Larson.
Here.
Representative Schwartz.
Here.
Representative Simpson. Representative Stiff.
Here.
Representative Walters.
Here.
Senator Guru.
Here.
Senator Hicks.
Here.
Senator Salazar. Senator Steinmetz. Co-Chairman Kinski.
Here.
Chairman Nicholas.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum for purposes of reimbursement. Representative Henderson.
Here.
Representative Sherwood. Representative Zwanis or Dave.
Here.
Senator Anderson.
Here.
Senator Nethercott.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So the first order of business today is we're going to walk through what we call the summary sheet. And we're going to walk through them one at a time. These are items 1 through 113 as part of the supplemental budget. And Don, just for a refresher and for those who haven't done it before, could you give us a short explanation of this process?
Mr. Chairman, per the committee rules, a motion is
Don, a little closer to the mic.
absolutely, Mr. Chairman, a motion is automatically implied, the governor's recommendation. Typically, we go through this in order of page numbers, which is also consistent with agency and unit order. That is also the same order you have in the summary sheet. Once the governor's rec is implied, the chairman will ask if there are any amendments to the recommendation. It is ideal to state your motion in the affirmative rather than a motion to deny the governor's rec. For example, the first recommendation from the governor is $25,000 for an ideas festival. If you are not in favor of that, a good motion to make would be, I amend the gov's rec to reduce by 25,000, basically just removing it that way. If you are a big fan of the Ideas Festival and you want to double it, you would say, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to increase the governor's recommendation by 25,000. That increase decrease often is the best way to accommodate the understanding of the amendment. Once you make your amendment, it does require a second. So someone else on the committee, either side, House or Senate, will need to make an amendment. The committee rules allow for 2 degrees of amendment or 2 branches of the amendment process. So in the event the first amendment was to increase the Ideas of Festival by $25,000, another member could make a 2nd degree amendment. It may or may not be friendly to say, doubling it might be a little bit much. Would the original sponsor be amenable to 50% increase to 37.5 thousand in this example? And that can either be voted on or agreed to by the sponsor. Finally, once the entire recommendation of the governor is concluded with all outstanding amendments, the chairman will request a final action on the amendment. Typically is done by voice vote. It does require a majority of the committee. So in this case, it looks like there are 11 members here today. So 6 members of the committee would need to be voting in the affirmative.
Don? Mr. Chairman,
Please.
so then, Don, when we going back to the first one, if we all agreed with it and it was, the motion would be from the chairman would be Gov's rec. If there's no moments, then we're going to vote on that. Gov's rec as Gov, then he'll tell us Gov's rec again. We'll all say aye. I mean, we have to have a voice vote on each one. And then my second question, are we going to, as we go through this, is it the right way? Do we go down the summary sheet or should we follow along in the budget book?
Mr. Chairman, we will be using the budget book, but it is the equivalent. So you can see the agency that you're working on, 001, you can see the page number. So
Yeah, so I'll be referring to the summary sheet.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
real quick, Don, on the, so on a gov's rec, what if we want to adopt the gov's rec and further amend, or we just as the motion, I want to amend the gov's rec?
Mr. Chairman, just amend and increase by $10,000 or whatever,
Or whatever,
or decrease.
or whatever the amendment.
And so we'll do the first one slow, so you kind of get the hang of it. And when we get the first amendment, we'll do it slow, so everyone kind of picks up the rhythm as we go.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
not to confuse things, but what happened to the old deny and further amend? Is that just gone?
It's never supposed to be used.
No, Mr. Chairman, that is for the conference committee when you're
Okay.
deleting and further amending amendments that had already been adopted from one chamber or the other.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. So Don, if on a gov's rec, we adopt it, but we want to add language to it, we would propose the amendment and just say we would like to add link. If I wanted to do that on the first one, I'd say my amendment is to add this language to it, and then we'll have that discussion, right?
Absolutely. So, Representative, you may move to amend the governor's recommendation for $25,000, add a footnote indicating that no award be greater than $150.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
So Bob, in that instance, Lloyd makes a motion, but with a talking amendment. Nobody says anything. We're just going to go right to voice vote. And
Well,
we take
you need
it
a
as
second.
amended, or do we have to vote first on the amendment and then on Gov's rec as amended?
the motion is to adopt and further amend. So that requires a second to do the amendment, correct?
Mr. Chairman, in your example, that's correct. So Representative Larson would move to amend. That needs a second. That also needs a vote, and then
Then
you
you
have
Okay.
a final vote.
As amended.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you probably told us this already. So when he comes out on the first one, he says line one, da, 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 gov's rec, does that need to be seconded?
Nope.
Okay, so gov's rec,
So let's do this. We'll just do the first one. Agency 1. Division 1, Unit 101. Page 18.
Gov's rec.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Unit or Division 110, Unit 104. Gov's rec. All those in favor say aye.
Amendment,
aye.
amendment.
Okay, there's a motion.
Move to amend.
Go ahead.
Like to amend and approve the 26,550. Move that to the Wyoming Department of Education. And
Second.
move the program to the Wyoming Department of Education.
Second.
Moving second. Everyone understand the amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. 1 second, I'll turn my phone
That.
on. Okay,
So now
Mr.
we have
Chairman.
to. Oh, as.
no, as amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries.
Don has.
Mr. Chairman, on that one, just for members' knowledge, because we're in the middle of a biennium, we will probably leave the first fiscal year in the governor's office and then the second fiscal year inclusive of the increase in the Department of Education. Is that consistent with the?
That's consistent with the motion.
Thank you.
In fact, that's exactly what I heard him say.
Agency 1, Division 600, Unit 601.
Gov's
Special
rec.
contingency. Motion to
So-
go rec.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so typically the chairman guiding us through there does the gov's rec.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Gov's rec,
Amendment.
please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that that 525 be taken out of the $20 million emergency fund that the governor has. Rather than new
A
money.
second. Is there a second? All those in, okay, as amended. So the money is coming out of the $20 million Gov's contingency fund. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Don, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'm interpreting that as a $525,000 appropriation from the LSRA.
Because the 20 million is in the LSRA.
The 20 million comes from the LSRA.
So, Mr. Chairman, a question.
Go ahead.
Question that effectively just reduces the amount in the governor's ability to, so it takes it down to 525 minus whatever the balance is in that emergency fund right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, as amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Now we're going on to the next division. A and I,
Chairman,
please.
I have an amendment for the governor's office.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move to add $500,000 in the governor's office for the Wyoming coal marketing program. This, and if I get a second, I'll explain.
Second.
This is an issue or something that we had done in the previous biennium's budget, and it was mistakenly missed last year when we were working on this budget. This is to help Wyoming market its coal to all of our states that receive Wyoming coal and would like to turn to green energy instead. And so it helps entities go out and promote Wyoming's coal and promote the ability for us to continue producing that coal and selling it, because we don't consume near enough here in Wyoming. And as a side note, it was a good previous chair on the Senate side that brought this amendment in the previous biennium.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
this is a new one to us. We didn't know this was coming. So Don, the governor missed it in his budget.
Mr. Chairman, this was an amendment or this was a provision in 2020 and 2021. It was not requested this time. I can't say whether it was missed or not. It was not requested.
So the question, Don, is did those monies revert because it was in the budget?
No.
Or are they money still there?
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding the appropriation was transferred to the Wyoming Energy Authority and it was expended.
Okay, so this just backfills then what was appropriated by us 2 years ago.
It would allow for the continuation of these types of expenditures for coal marketing.
Mr.
Please, Representative Walters.
This was not the governor's idea. This was something the legislature felt important. Legislature put this in the governor's office for him to carry out these activities. So I would not say the governor missed it necessarily. We missed it because it was a legislative driven idea to go market coal.
So could you restate the motion just so we
So
know?
the motion is $500,000. It just happens to be housed in the governor's office, $500,000 for coal marketing programs.
And the source of the funds?
Mr. Chairman, if I may a little more, it's not just solely to go out and market coal. So the consultants that the Energy Authority has used and we've historically done is a group of industry specialists that monitor the impacts of legislation, both within other states where coal generation is at and federal amendments to policy that will negatively impact coal and keep the state apprised and the industry apprised of the negative impacts or the influence on our coal production or our ability to sell coal and to use coal as a generating source. So
Mr. Chairman.
pretty important.
Please go ahead. Coach.
So Senator Hicks and I were part of the Appropriations Committee originally with Senator Bebout when this was brought about. Here's the thing, we had the governor's office here. We didn't know this motion was coming. It would be nice if we had had an opportunity to explore it with the governor as to whether it was unintentional or intentional as to why it wasn't in the budget. We're going to have to be no. It doesn't mean that we can't be swung around if we hear from the governor's office that they really do need it, or we can be persuaded otherwise, but it's a surprise to us. So we're going to say no for now.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may just elaborate a little quickly, it seems to me as the governor's already transferred this, we put it with the Wyoming Energy Authority. If there was an appropriate place to put it, it wouldn't be in the governor's office. It would be to supplement the WEA's budget to do the coal marketing. And then the other thing that I guess I'd need a little more clarification. I thought that we included many of these sources of Wyoming's energy and the $100 million that we put in there for the energy initiative. And so for right now, I just need more clarification. It's not that I'm I'm resistant to the idea. I just need more information at this point in time.
Mr. Chairman, we apologize because there's a couple of questions on the coal initiative that may be warranted, but we've been in touch with the governor's office. We asked them, should this go to the WEA budget or should it stay in the governor's office? Their recommendation was keep it in the governor's office, and what they'd done was distributed it out to the WEA when those contracts were filled for reimbursement. So we followed that, but we'll get the governor's energy policy director to visit with us and see if we can clear some of that up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So
So you want to withdraw the motion and we'll bring it back? Yeah, well, yeah, let's just do. Okay,
Chairman, I'll withdraw the motion.
okay, let's go to agency 6. A&I, this is number 4 on your summary sheet, Division 2000. Oh, another one?
Close, Governor.
Oh, you're right. Move to close agency 1.
second,
All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Don, does the move to close require a second?
Typically it doesn't.
Does not. Okay, good to save time.
Move to open agency 6. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. On line 4, Division 2000, Unit 2001, page 22, maintenance fees. We have a motion. Govs rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. A&I Division 3000, Unit 305,
Mr. Chairman.
Line.
line 26. Mr. Coaching.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we hold this one pending getting a bit more information. You had asked for some additional data. Can we hold this one? I don't know how we do that.
Yeah, Don, can you just bring us back to this? The issue is we asked for some information from A&I as to the trend and the balances on the account. The question being whether or not this is sufficient funds to maintain a trend and to not have a declining trend. And so we wanted to hear from Trish and just to make sure that this number is sufficient. So with that, we'll move on to line 6, Division 3000.
That was 6.
No, that was line 5. On mine.
Okay. Okay, I apologize.
Unit 3008, page 30, restoration of step 2 reductions for existing leasing obligations.
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Initially, the Senate was opposed to this, but upon reflection and some additional information, we're favorably inclined towards Govs rec.
Govs rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay, line 7, Division 3000, Unit 3052, page 33, capital conflict security. Govs rec. Is there a motion? Yeah, okay, please proceed.
Yeah, I've got some concerns with this. When we went through this and it doesn't show up on the budget, this is actually an expansion of 2 FTEs is the way I understand it. Well, it's not 2 FTEs, but it's an additional 2 security guards over what is currently hired underneath this. I think there's probably some other alternatives that we should explore and have more of a master plan on how we go about doing capital security. And then I guess we've got some concerns on moving forward with this at this time.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would reduce governor's rec to an amount that would cover enough security guards to ensure that the Capitol is open to visitors on Saturdays and Sundays. And then with a footnote to instruct the agency to come back with a more detailed security plan for the Capitol complex, not based on square footage.
Second,
And then, and that also would allow the use of cameras and or other mechanisms.
Technology, with the use of technology.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, does that still include the 1,020,000 or 20,000 appropriation or?
I would reduce that appropriation. Thank you. Thank you. I'd reduce that appropriation to 150,000.
second,
As amended, Kevin, go ahead. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, the security that's provided under the dome is provided by Division O and the Highway Patrol. So motion for the Saturday and Sunday, we need to consider the funding source for that differently than the Capitol Complex, because Capitol Complex is the one that we discussed about earlier with the cost allocation. So I'll repeat myself. Currently, under the dome, the security is provided by Division O from the Highway Patrol in their budget.
So the question is, when you say under the dome, does
This
it?
building
Okay.
and a portion of also the elected officials themselves, the treasurer, the auditor, et cetera, in a Hathaway is provided by Highway Patrol. But just that office space for those individuals. But basically in the Capitol building itself, that's Division O.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I ask for a little clarification? So, Kevin, what we'd really like to do is we'd really like to see the Capitol open to visitors on the weekend. That's when most people in Wyoming can travel. And so then we want to fund the security to allow that to happen. So that should not be an A&I is what I'm hearing you say.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not suggesting one way or the other. I'm just giving you the background of how the security is currently handled. And then maybe there's a conversation about the differential between the security on the weekends versus what's on the normal operations.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I suggest that we ask Dawn to allow us to come back to this and then we'll get this put together accurately.
So you're going to withdraw the motion and we'll just put a placeholder?
Yeah, that's correct. But Division O is their primary office downstairs in the basement. So they're here all the time.
Mr. Chairman, I believe all the time, I'm not sure, but I think during the business hours and as designed in the MOU, I believe.
But what may happen is, Division O doesn't necessarily need to be here during a weekend if someone else is here. And the governor's office is locked, Division O's office is locked. So there may be a way to do it the most economical way and kind of with the cooperation of.
Mr. Chairman, that is exactly what I'm suggesting is a review of on the weekends, do you want to have that to be a generally funded lift rather than a high security lift from the Division O? Separate those and then appropriate it in that fashion with the guidelines that sideboards that you want to establish.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would just share that I know and I'm not denying or confirming that I pushed that button in the Supreme Court chamber that got the security guards here the other night. But they were just the contract security guys.
Okay, so that line 7 for A&I will be tabled until modified. We'll go down to line 8. A&I, Division 3000, Unit 3052, page 35, Thyra Thompson Security Guard. Gov's Rec,
Mr. Chairman,
please.
hearkening back to our discussion, this is not something that the Senate can support. We don't feel it's necessary.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would encourage approval of the governor's recommendation on this. Currently, this individual is there and came over with probation and parole or one of those agencies when they moved into this office. And now they are providing security or services to the entirety of the building versus just the building for one agency when all of these agencies were separated throughout the city of Casper. And so by doing this, it allows for every agency that is in the building to be cost allocated towards this position as opposed to just one agency paying for this position. So I would encourage a support of the governor's rec.
Further discussion? All those in favor of Gov's rep, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No. Don, would you make a note of that?
That motion passes. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 7-5. Don will make a note of it.
Oh, well, we'll leave the vote open for Clark. Okay,
Just still make a note of it.
Yeah. okay, we're going on, A&I. Division 3000, Unit
Good catch, though.
3056, page 41, fire tops and building utilities. Gov's rec, all those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Just a minute, just a minute, just a minute.
Go ahead.
I'd like to amend Gov's rec, number 9.
Okay,
Would be to approve all of the positions except for the trades position that was requested for. That would be the recommendation. I believe there were 6 positions, so we would adopt 5, deny 1, and the position that we would deny would be the trades position.
okay, let me go back and, because I skipped that one. This is number 9, Unit 3000, Unit 3055, page 37. Gov's rec as modified and seconded by Vice President. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. As amended, all those in favor, Don, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, by approving the governor's recommendation, you are also approving Superflex for this entity. I just wanted to point that out, meaning they requested to either use 100 series, these folks, or to contract the service.
Contrary.
I think we were agreeable to that.
All those in favor as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Going down to line number 10. A&I, Division 3000, Unit 3056, page 41, building utilities. Gov's rec, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Going down to Agency 007, military, page.
No.
line
Line
11.
One more A&I, sorry. Elimination of 5 vacant positions. That's Unit 3501, page 44. Gov's rec, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Move to close, Agency 006. Don?
Mr. Chairman. As practice, we've offered amendments that members make us access previously.
Okay.
Regarding a survey of state employees currently working in Cheyenne and whether or not they would retain their current job to, if they were offered the opportunity to move to a different city.
I think Larry left just in time. I will make a motion that we add to the governor's. No, it's A&I. No more than $25,000 or in survey of all state employees, generally on the topic of would they be willing to work elsewhere than Cheyenne if it were possible to do so. We'll have to work on the wording of that a little bit.
So, Mr. Co-Chair, I think it might behoove us to actually have that written up in, so we can read what the language is.
Very, very good, Mr. Co-Chair. We'll come back to that
So
one.
it's just, yeah, would you put a.
We got a
placeholder-
couple others we're coming back to
Put a
anyway.
placeholder on for that, would you do,
Okay.
please, Don? Okay, let's go back to A&I, move to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Agency 007, military, I think that says 0100, unit 0101, page 17, recruiting marketing. Gov's rec. Is there a
Mr.
motion?
Chairman,
Please,
I would reduce Gov's rec by half.
Second.
move in second to reduce the appropriation in half. All those in favor say
Mr.
aye.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
in that amendment and require the military department to solicit help from the University of Wyoming in marketing efforts.
As amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Unit 000100.
Line 13.
Unit
As amended.
101, number 13, Wyoming National Guard Education Assistance Plan.
It's just, Mr. Chairman, did we vote on the motion as amended?
We did.
Okay.
All those in favor as amended, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Going back then to unit 103, page 21, line 13, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries. Line 14. Unit 400. No, I'm sorry, Division 400, 405 unit, page 25, Wyoming Cowboy Challenge Academy. Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Division 800, this is line 15, unit 801. Govs, go ahead, Govs Rec,
Mr. Chairman,
please.
initially, we were inclined against this, but the persuasiveness of the conservative member of the House Appropriations, Representative Schwartz, persuaded us that we should be in support of it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? that motion
Aye.
carries. Motion to close military. All those in favor
Mr.
say
Chairman.
John?
Aye.
I believe there are a couple of issues I just wanted to bring to your attention during their hearing. There was some request that the $500,000 appropriated for routine maintenance from the general fund be moved from the Air National Guard to the Army National Guard.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
with that, I would make a motion to move 500,000 for major maintenance from the Air National Guard to the Army National Guard. This is previously appropriated money.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Anything else, Don?
Mr. Chairman, one note, and that is on the Youth Challenge Program. That is also authorization to provide Superflex, meaning move the 100 series and use that to pay other states with the clarification. And then we did have one member interested in a potential amendment for a military memorial on a community college. I'm sorry, that is the wrong bill. Thank you.
Okay, any other motions?
We make a note of that.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I'd like to make a motion for $25,000 for a military memorial on a community college campus or community college campuses that have received national awards for being military-friendly campuses.
Don?
Mr. Chairman, I think I misguided. That would be appropriate in the capital construction bill.
That's what I thought.
Okay, any other motions on unit or agency 007? Seeing none. Move to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Move to open agency Department of Revenue, agency 011. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. We'll go to division 100, unit 103, page 13, and this is line 16 of your summary sheet.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I would like to amend this and reduce the appropriation by $108,623 and eliminate the FTE.
Everyone understand the motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Question. Don, could we just deny Govs Rec and eliminate that?
Mr. Chairman, the senator's motion is actually the cleanest,
Okay.
but you could do either way. It just sometimes gets a little confusing.
Very
So
good.
stick with the cleaners.
Second, I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
As amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. We're now at line 17, division 200, unit 201, page 17, increased cost communications. Govs Rec. All those in favor say
Mr.
aye.
Chairman.
Aye.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify, that we initially were inclined not to support this. The Senate is in support of it at this time.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Going to division 200, unit 285, tax examination. This is line 18, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Division 300, unit 301, page 23, employee professional development training, Govs Rec. All those in favor say
Mr.
aye.
Chairman,
Please.
again, this is one that on reflection, since it's coming out of DOR revenues and we were inclined to support this.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Any other changes to Department of Revenue, Don?
Did we do line 20?
You have line 20.
Line 20, unit 500, 501. Page 27, senior inspection specialist, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Move to close.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Motion to open agency 1015, Attorney General, Division 1, Unit 115, page 14, support for defense of school finance litigation.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I move to add to Governor's Rick an amount to an additional 750,000,
Second.
right? Or is it to the total?
The total.
To an amount to make the total 750,000.
Second.
Moving second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Motion to close. All those in favor, as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries. Motion to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries. We'll go to agency 020 DEQ. This is line 22, unit 101, page 11. Mine reclamation bonding, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Going to division 300, unit 301, Govs Rec. All those in
Mr.
favor say aye.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
move to amend,
And
adopt Gov's Rec and further amend that this is not included in the standard budget and
so it's a one-time funding not to be
one
included in
time
standard budget.
not
Is that
not
correct?
included in the standard budget.
And Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, we're not against it. It's new. We'd like to review it. We'd like to have opportunities to review it, see what we're getting out of our money.
As amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Going down to number 24. This is also unit 301, page 20. ARPA and BISAR infrastructure investment, Govs Rec. All those in favor
Move
say
to
aye.
amend.
Go ahead.
That would not be part of the standard budget. We'd like to review it when it comes up.
So the same amendment as
Same amendment.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. As amended, all those in favor say aye. Go ahead.
So I wonder, as we go back to those last two, so they're gonna hire a guy for a year. If I'm seeing that right, because we're authorizing in the spending for a year. And so when they put this out to bid on both of these, there's no indication because we're not allowing it to move forward in their standard budget. That may be, I didn't think about that earlier, but Donna, I got that. Is that not a fair?
Mr. Chairman, that would be correct. The position would be available for 1 year in both cases. So there's actually two positions.
So, Mr. Chairman, Don, a real quick question on that. Haven't we in the past said we authorize the position, but we want to review this? So what is the language that we put in there that we want to basically review this? In other words, the position's there, but they need to come back and ask for the funding for that position moving forward. Or do we just authorize the expenditure and then require them to come back and not
Through
put
an
it in their
exception
standard
with a
budget, but put it in a supplemental request? How does that work?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, I think the amendment you provided is exactly the process. To Representative Larson's point, it does put that position in some level of uncertainty. But recall, this position would be available July 1. The governor will be able to include that as an exception request next year. You could discuss how it's going in November, December, January, and either continue the funding for that in perpetuity or short term as the bodies determine.
Okay. Thank you.
So we are back on
Line 25.
line 25. Actually, I think we're on 24. As amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Now we're on line 25. Division 4,000, Unit 4810, page 25, AQD Environmental Modeling and Monitoring. Govs Rec,
Mr. Chairman,
please.
just as a heads up on this one, this will not appear in the agency's budget. This will have to be a section 300 because we'll have to go de-appropriate those previously appropriated AML funds. Thank you.
Okay, as
That's right.
Govs Rec, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Moving to close, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries. Going to agency 21, audit. All those in favor, move to open. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries. Division 200, Unit 201, page 15, Banking Division, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Public Service Commission, Agency 23, Unit 100, Division 100, Unit 101, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Number 28, Unit 101, page 16, Facility Engineer, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Unit 101, line 29, 19A, Regional Staff Position, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries.
Did you get line 28?
Yeah, we
Okay.
got 28. Line 30, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. So that adopts his denial. So everyone knows, right?
It's an affirmative of denial.
Yeah. Okay, going to unit 0101, page 22, line 31, Universal Service Fund, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Line 32, unit 601, page 30, Universal Service Fund Sunset, Govs Rec. All those in favor say
Whoa,
aye.
whoa, 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 there's an amendment here.
No. We're still back up on 32.
On 32, okay.
We're on
Sorry.
32. Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Don?
Mr. Chairman, on the Universal Service Fund,
Gotcha.
we're interpreting the governor's recommendation to include language to be contingent upon if Senate File number 2, which is a sponsored bill by the Corporations Committee, is not enacted into law, then these appropriations would occur. If it is enacted, in other words,
And so Don, would you put that language in
in the footnote
In the footnote.
associated with this.
the, right,
Yes.
correct?
Do we need to vote on that or is it just?
Let's just do it. As recommended by staff, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, just for
Go ahead.
clarification on that, Don, so we have that, so you have a bill that passes and it has an appropriation, and we have a budget item that passes that have as appropriation. Is there a standard procedure with which one controls?
Mr. Chairman, in that case, typically the bill that passes last has control. However, our language here hopefully avoids any confusion over that. It says, if this passes, this is not enacted. If it doesn't pass, this is enacted, something like
But in
that.
lieu of the language
In lieu of-
saying it's the last one that's passed. All right, thank you.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Moving down to agency 024, division 400, unit 5450. Outdoor recreation office funding for the Wyoming tourism account. Please proceed.
Move to adopt GovRec and further amend, add $800,000 and specify $400,000 for operations, $800,000 for trail construction and maintenance.
The source of the $800,000
Special fund
special funds from the
within agency funds.
tourism account. Yeah.
Oh, my mistake, tourism.
Everyone understand? the
Mr.
motion?
Chairman,
Mr. Chairman. I'd like to get a little bit more information from Representative Schwartz on what he has in mind. It's, we like to protect that tourism account. But what's the good purpose to which it'll be put?
I would make the argument, thank you, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Mr. Chairman, I would make the argument that it is very appropriate use of the funding from tourism in that the construction of trails and pathways are a significant element of improving tourism in the state of Wyoming.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
no argument with that, but I didn't hear that in the
Yeah.
motion for the purpose of the 800 was just go into operations.
No,
No, that was not the motion. Excuse me.
You want to restate the motion?
I will restate the motion to add $800,000 to the appropriation. The money comes from the Department of Tourism. $400,000 specifically for operations, $800,000.
Just, Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion?
Yes,
So I think what we had talked about is amending the governor's recommendation to increase the amount by 800,000 to be used for the department for construction and maintenance of trails.
Trails and pathways.
that is friendly.
Does everyone understand the motion?
Mr. Chairman, just a
Go
little
ahead.
bit more discussion. Since coming out of the travel and tourism budget, I'd like to turn to Senator Guru, who is the guardian of the travel and tourism budget, and get his take on Representative Schwartz's motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not against the motion right now. I'd just like a chance to have the tourism department at least know that before we do it, at least give them a heads up that we were heading in that direction.
I think they know about it now.
Yeah, I think they do too. That's why I'm voting no, and I would urge you. Thank you.
Don, you had a question on it. Are you good?
Mr. Chairman, it's no longer split, so we're.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, let's caucus a little bit. We need to caucus a little bit on this one.
Okay.
And it won't, it'll be 3 minutes, I promise.
All right.
I need
Okay, we are back in session. We're
Mr.
on
Chairman?
Number 33. And is there a motion to table?
Mr. Chairman, move to table.
So I don't think that requires a vote, Don.
Mm-mm.
I don't believe it. So that will be tabled. Now we're going to line 34.
Mr. Chairman,
Actually, we'll go, at this point, we
We
need
have
to
to
move to
close.
close. All those in favor say aye.
aye,
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I just a brief pause. I want to thank you for snapping us through this. I was walking home in the cold the other night and it occurred to me that you had more experience than any three of us. We're not young, we're just green. So appreciate it.
Okay, now we'll go to agency 27, Construction Management Division. Move to open. All those in favor say aye.
Aye,
Those opposed, that motion carries. We are at Division 1100, Unit 1208, School Inflationary Fund, Gov's Rec. All those in favor say aye.
aye,
All those opposed, that motion carries. Number 35. Once again, Division 1100, Unit 1208, page 18, Gov's Rec. All in favor say aye.
aye,
That motion carries. Going down to the next line, 36. It's actually the, of SCD, Gov's Rec. All those in favor say aye.
aye,
That motion carries. Going down to 37.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
was there an alternative motion here or would that be something we'd come back to later?
Yeah, we're going to come back to that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I heard a voice out there in the wilderness.
I did too.
Get the Civil Air Patrol and get out there and find them.
So Don, would, just for clarification, we're going to come back to that because there was a proposal that we're going to put together and then I'll present it to the Senate. So just, so on those two, on 35 and 36. Okay, going to line 37. Unit 1100, Division 1100, Unit 1501, page 24, School Major Maintenance.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead and move.
Gov's Rec,
Mr. Chairman,
please.
I'd move that we reduce Gov's Rec by half.
Second.
Move in second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
this is a statutorily based formula, and this is just filling that formula based on the statute that we, the legislature, have in place. So I would encourage that we accept the governor's recommendation here.
So Don, if we don't comply with or fund the statutory requirements, is there?
Mr. Chairman, I believe the statute says to the extent funds are available, staff that are listening in could advise on that. I believe the statute indicates that it's to the extent funds are available.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I know in the past, we've actually reduced the percentage of.
You turned it off.
Mr. Chairman, I know when we have in the past not completely funded everything that is statutorily.
I think that's correct. We have reduced
Reduced the amount. We did,
1.5%.
we did just in the current budget.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
And I don't argue that, but I think it's kind of a different thing. So what we've done is we reduced the percentage, but then we still complied with the result of the calculation using that percentage. And that's what this does, is we've reduced the percentage to 2% on this, and then we have to comply with, I'm wondering if we don't have to comply within the calculation that it provides.
And
now we will
found a
find.
friend. Matt, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Richards is right that the statute indicates that to the extent funds are available, payments are made in accordance with the statute. However, there's a following provision in the statute that says if any shortfall is made in the prior year, then it's made up the following year. So if you reduce this for $4 million or $4.5 million, that $4.5 million will be paid in fiscal year 25, according to the formula.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I think that we had some members that would like to know what major maintenance these schools have in reserve as well as their ARPA funds. So we don't know what we might do, but we sure would like to have more information on it before we do anything other than half.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
And Matt, also, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. Irregardless of what a school has in major maintenance in the reserves, statute says if we don't fund it, if we're short of funds this year, at some point down the road, when those funds are available, we have to make up what we didn't fund at this time.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, that's correct. I will pull the information that Senator Dukinski requested. The ARPA funds were not a specific amount for major maintenance. The ESSER funds were allocated to the school districts for various purposes, not specifically for major maintenance, but I could certainly identify the balance that was contained in school districts reserves from their major maintenance amount. And send that to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And that's a useful number to have. But I think we also allowed them to increase their reserve accounts. And so that those were theoretically, those reserve accounts could have 2 or 3 years of major maintenance dollars in them to save up for a large project or a larger project. At least that's my understanding. Is that accurate?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. The major maintenance funds are actually in their special reserve funds. It does not have a limit on the reserve funds. And you're correct. School districts continue to build those in cases that they have to replace roofs or HVAC systems, which are high dollar amounts, which in some instances can be greater than their annual major maintenance payment. And so those major maintenance funds in their special reserve fund can only be expended on major maintenance amounts. They can't be expended on anything other
So
than
then,
major maintenance.
to go to the earlier conversation, we have in the past reduced major maintenance from 2% or 2.5% down to 2%, down to 1.5%. How is this different?
Mr. Chairman, I believe you're referencing the state construction side.
Yeah, okay.
This is different in that this is a statutory formula with the 2% multiplier in statute. And if the legislature does change that, they have to do it through a statutory provision.
Mr. Chairman, just not to get into the merits of it, but just in the theory of it, there are plenty of areas where the statute says shall, and each legislature decides for itself whether it's going to be bound by the prior legislature. I know there's edicts about when money shall tip into the corpus and the legislature just intercepts it. It's not the first time that we reduced it. We're just looking for some more information, Mr. Chairman, but I think it's always the legislature's discretion to fund or not fund and how much.
So at this point, I think we'll just table it. But what's your timing on being able to have that information?
Mr. Chairman, I have in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just one more question. Matt, is there any provision, and I understand when you have large anticipated major maintenance projects that are coming up that you want to stockpile that. But it seems like, and I don't know for school district, but it seems like for special districts that we put a provision in there that they had to profile that. And is it the same for school districts? And when I say profile, remember when we went through all this special district legislation a few years ago that said, look, some of these districts, exact same scenario, rural fire department has got to buy a new $2 million fire truck. And we saw these giant reserves. And so there was a provision, I think it was passed in statute, says that's fine, but you need to tell us what you're saving all those reserves for. And I think that applied to special districts. Do we not have something similar for school districts?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, each year, or it used to be each year, but every 2 years, school districts by statute are required to have an annual facility plan. And they work with the state construction department staff to identify how they're expend major maintenance funds, how they're going to, if they are allocated any design or construction funds, how those will be allocated. And so they do have a 5-year plan that they update on how they anticipate to expend major maintenance funds. and the commission then approves those plans. And each of their major maintenance projects has to be approved by the commission and the department before they expend those dollars. And in some instances, in examples up in Toronto County, they did a project recently that utilized both state funds through major maintenance and also their own funds to complete a construction project. And so major maintenance funds can be utilized as part of a remedy along with a state construction department or state capital construction project amount. Doesn't have to necessarily just be a major maintenance project, but a combination as well. But that's all detailed in their 5-year facility plans that the commission approves.
And Mr. Chairman, would we get that from the state construction department? Then they have those available.
Mr. Chairman, correct. They have each of those school districts' facility plans on file.
All right, thank you.
So that one's tabled.
That's Ms. Table. So we'll move to line, thank you, Matt. I appreciate getting that information. Line 38, same to the agency division 3400, unit 3401. Page 28, account analyst to assist construction procurement, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chairman, we can't, Mr. Chairman, we can't support this one.
Did we close,
We're still
on
We're in it.
SCD.
Still in it.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we can't support this. What we're seeing is we keep adding personnel and adding personnel and adding personnel in the state budget. They've gotten along this well without it. And we're getting a little bit, the Senate side is getting a little bit leery as to how many new positions we're funding in state government. So we've got to be a no on this one, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
And appreciate that, but they are not getting along just fine without it. It's in where they're needing it is they go into the procurement and bonding portion of that. With the change in statutes that we made a couple of years ago on this committee, it's just put an additional responsibility that used to be in A&I now on this agency, and we kind of been monitoring that and anticipating this coming. So I appreciate the good senator's position, but hoping that they would soften their hearts and see the value of this position and hope that we would support it.
And just to follow up on that, we had a testimony of the director here. I forgot the total number, but they had like 700 or 800 projects under construction. And it's remarkable. And they have one person essentially doing all the accounting for those projects on the school side. And what the testimony was is that they literally can't keep up with it, and that they've got one person doing two persons job on the accounting side. So.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm going to speak for my fellow senators, but they can weigh in if they wish, but you can always justify another position and another and another and another. And we were not convinced by it. When perhaps I used the wrong phrase, they're doing just fine. They're building schools and they'll find a way. They found a way to distribute the work and do the work. We are leery of adding to the head count of state government. This is, to quote my dad, organizations don't get into trouble into bad times. They get into trouble during good times. And here, that's where we are. It's very easy when we're flush to start adding these positions, but it's not that long ago that we were down here cutting positions. And I'd rather avoid getting in trouble and not have to come down here and go through the pain of those reductions. This money is only one time, so we're on and against.
Should be. Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No,
Motion fails. Hmm? Yeah, okay, yeah, all those in favor, raise their hand. I think he's on the. All those in favor, raise their hand. All those opposed? That motion carries.
would you make a note of that one, Don?
Okay. Is that it? That is it.
Move to close.
Move to close it. Oh, as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Oh, yes.
Oh, let me do this one. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
As amended. Okay, now, please.
So are you ready to close on more? So, Mr. Chairman, I've got one amendment I'd like to add into 027 in the school CapCon account, an additional $2 million to the construction of the Riverton Auditorium. When we funded that last year, it was a bit of a swag. And now that they're about at 35% of planning, yeah, that's going to be insufficient and would like to get that funded.
And Don, that would be in what division and unit?
Mr. Chairman, I believe this would be in 1208 construction projects.
1208. Does everyone understand the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I don't. Let's go back. I had a sidebar with one of my colleagues. It's 1208 and the motion is what?
We're at, Mr. Chairman and Senator Kinski, we're adding $2 million into the construction project for the Riverton Auditorium.
Go ahead.
The $23 million into this for inflationary cost was to cover these inflationary costs. And so why are we singling out one project when wouldn't it be eligible for part of that inflationary fund that we've approved or conditionally may approve on the CapCon bill?
Well, Mr. Chairman, and Senator Hicks, perhaps you're correct. I see the difference in the inflationary fund being used for those projects that we funded and had the full price there as in the bid come back and was shy. This we haven't gone to bid, and we just know that there's not that much in there. Now, frankly, if this body is comfortable with given the Department of Construction the flexibility to adjust that, I'm fine with that, but I just hadn't understood that account to be able to do that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, and I'm trying to recollect the presentation. They only had 11 projects under construction. They had 41 in the process. That was the big color handout. And my assumption based on the presentation is that additional $23 million they were asking for in contingents was for those ones that are somewhere in the process that are going to be coming out. And that's what I'd like to find out is, it seemed to me like the Riverton Auditorium would have fallen right into that category. And maybe we can get some clarification from SBC on that.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Please.
Don.
the Riverton project is included in the inflationary fund, 30% of the amount, which is $1,640,000.
Okay.
There's 1.6 already in.
And Mr. Chairman, I just, for my part and my colleagues, it'd be nice if these questions got asked when the agencies were here. It'd be easier for us. So we're going to have to be against the amendment.
Well, so tell me how much is in the inflationary fund?
$1,640,000.
Yeah. I'll withdraw the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, back on the school capital construction as amended. Don?
Mr. Chairman, back on page 18, which is your number
35? No.
35,
actually it's 34, the school
34.
inflationary fund.
page 17.
During the testimony, I believe, 17. I believe during the testimony, the agency provided an updated figure of $20,569,845. $20,569,845. Did you want to take into account their verbal adjustment?
I would believe so. So as all those in
So
favor of
moved.
asserting such number, say aye.
Aye.
Go ahead.
We didn't
We're
close. it.
still in it.
We're still in, yep.
So the motion is on 1208 to GovRec amended to
20
20,569.
to the number, yeah.
Whatever that number is what my.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Move
Mr. Chairman.
close.
Nope. Mr.
As amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
before we close, I want to make sure that I'm tracking. On line 37, we agreed to table that. Was there something else that we agreed to table in addition to 37?
The answer is, we didn't table 35 and 36, but we just informed that we're going to come back with a proposal on it. And so in a sense, it's table.
Okay, so
Yeah, Mr.
35 and 36 also?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my notes reflect that it was unanimous Gov's rec on 35, 36. And we understand at some point our colleagues may come back with a proposal, but for now, we're denying the two Gov's recs.
That's correct. That's what we did.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead,
could I get a clarification on the motion that was just voted on?
please.
That's what I'm asking you.
What we did was, what we voted on was decreasing that sum of 22,751,000 down to 20 million ... consistent with the number that was presented to us. Okay. Anything else? Any other? Don, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one last or two points. One is just for your knowledge. This will all appear, all of these projects will appear in section 313. And we will apply the language like we have in the past. So it just looks a little different. That's an informational point.
And when will we see that?
You won't see that until January.
Mr. Chairman, question for Don. When you say all these projects, I assume that's lines 34, 35, 30, well, it wouldn't be 35, 36, 37.
Yes.
Those would be in a section what? Section what?
Section 313. And each of those lines condenses several other projects. So there's demolition projects, there's inflationary projects that are not appearing on your summary sheet, but do appear
Correct.
in the bill.
Okay.
Secondly, the governor had recommended $158 million transfer from the school foundation program reserve account to the school capital construction account to fund this. Now, I recognize the big dollar amount here is pending, meaning you've not acted on the large dollar amount,
111.
but we do need some direction as to how you want to pay for this, because the school CapCon account does not have sufficient funds to accommodate.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Don, where I've got a page 5 that has the governor's transfers.
No, this is from his message. There was no governor's letter associated with this, to my knowledge, and it is in his fiscal profile. It's just the method he used to fund his recommendations of school capital.
Don, give us a little 101. Typically, where are these funded from?
So last year, you had to transfer from 5 different accounts: LSRA, SIPA, a whole bunch of stuff. So let me give you the 2 obvious places. Number one, your committee has approved or agreed to sponsor legislation that combines the school foundation program and the SCCA. One option would be, pending that bill, transfer sufficient funds from the SFP operations to school capital construction. That's one obvious choice.
And the balance of the SFP operations?
It's approximately $600 million after you've taken into account all the gov's recs. So there would be sufficient funds to do that. The secondary option is, as the governor has included in his profile, the school foundation program reserve account only receives funds from one source, that is over the second cap of severance taxes. And that was a issue of debate during the joint conference committee on last year's bill, and you cut it like 60-40 or something like that. And under Craig, we're anticipating $158 million of revenue will be deposited in that account. The governor's recommendation takes all of that and moves it to school capital construction. Those are 2 options. Of course, you could use LSRA or general fund or other.
So Don, when we did that last year, we did the 60-40. we split part of that was going into the school capital construct. Where did the other piece of that go? I'm trying to recollect.
Mr. Chairman, I believe it was a split between the budget reserve account and the school foundation program reserve account.
So, Mr. Co-Chair, I would suggest that we just leave this alone, table it, so we can,
Track. where the
yeah,
money's
and
going.
not fish right now.
Yeah, we'll table the question of how to pay for it.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
for Senator or for Chairman Kinsey, we had one clarification. The school major maintenance will appear in 027 and not in section 313.
In what section?
It was line item number 37,
Yeah,
and that will appear in the bill in agency 27. It will not appear in separate section 313. So it'll be up in the tables versus back in the section 300.
That's fine. Yeah, just make sure you bring it to our attention.
Thank you.
We've got, we're gonna have quite a few of these that we're gonna be tinkering with till the end, or maybe even in January. So.
okay.
As amended, move to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carried. Moving to State Engineer's Office, is that right? 037. Division 1400, Unit 1401, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. That was
Move to
number-
close.
Number 40, move to close. I'm sorry, number 39. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Parimutuel, we're on line 40, move to open. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. And we'll go to Division 100, Unit 101.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
and I've got a question for Don and Elizabeth. There was, I don't know which of these positions. I think it's line 42, where they were talking about taking thousands of pages of printout and manually going through them, looking for clues to wrongdoers. Which position was that?
Mr. Chairman, that was my understanding. It was the sworn peace officer, SPC 109.
Yeah, line 42.
Thank you.
So we're at line 40. Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Line 41. Division 100, Unit 101, Senior Inspector, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Line 42. Same unit, page 15, Sworn Peace Officer. Govs Rec,
Mr. Chairman,
please.
I'd move to amend to reduce the appropriation by 104,955 and remove the new position.
Move to second. As amended, Govs Rec, all those, no, as amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries. As amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries. Line 43, Senior Inspector, on page 16, off-track wagering, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Line 44, same unit, page 17, Computer Equipment, new position, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Same unit, page 18, ETS, line 45, 400 series, Govs Rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, before we close, just a universal motion on the last two units for the priority 6 and priority 5 to just have our staff prorate that number to account for the fact that we have removed one of the positions that was accounted for when those numbers were created. I don't think we need to take the time to determine what that number is, but I think our staff can figure it out.
I would presume that they would do that in our request. So that being said, motion, all of it as amended. Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Motion to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Going on to Department of Health. We're on line 46. Govs Rec, Strategy Business Analyst. A move to open, Department of Health. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Line
I thought they
46.
were all, I thought they were all open.
Yeah.
No, we have to move to open. Okay. I just woke up.
Strategic Business Analyst. Govs Rec, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Line 47. Division 400, Unit 450, page 19, Medicare buy-in enrollment increase. Govs Rec, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Line 48. This is Unit 460, page.
Mr.
28.
Chairman, Catherine Camerati, LSO. I think we have an issue with that one. I think we need to add public health lab to section 309.
Don?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. It is embedded in their request, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. They're asking for an allowance for their superflex and the purposes for which they can use carryover funds. And they wanted to add the public health lab, and that appears in this unit. So we just wanted to flag that.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
this current statute says facilities, but we want to make absolutely certain that we requested that public health lab would be included.
So it's just to be more transparent.
Transparency, sure.
Okay. Govs Rec, all those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chairman, is that an amendment to?
No, I think it's a clarification.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Line 49. Unit 461, page 24, increased Medicaid dental rates. Govs Rec, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Unit 50. This is, I'm sorry, Unit 463, page 27, increased Medicaid nursing home reimbursement.
Mr. Chairman, Polly Scott, LSO, there's also an issue on this one. It's there noted in your table about the reversions will not be included in the table.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, we brought this up during the hearing, that $5.5 million won't appear because it would be a double appropriation, just a point of reference. So when you're approving this, you're not approving 5.5 million in addition to the prior appropriation from last year.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Okay,
Mr. Chairman. So I would reduce the governor's rec to $5.5 million general funds and 5.5 federal funds. In effect, we're funding 50% instead of 100%. And so that 5.5 that's not profiled will not show.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that Don is correct. On page 29, we represented the carryover as a balancing of the budget. That does not have to be profiled.
I know, but I'm not using that. I'm using general funds.
Right, so we have the 5.5 of general funds. Are you suggesting 5.5 increase the general fund?
No, so Mr. Chairman, the way I understood it, and Mr. Richards, the way I understood it, the way it's profiled, is we had 5.5 general funds and 5.5 reversion funds. I'm not using the reversion funds. Okay, and then 5.5 federal funds.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I don't want to do math publicly. The intent is to reduce it by half. So by whatever set, what would staff recommend in terms of numbers and whether it comes out of the reversion or general funds and so forth?
Mr. Chairman, we understand the intent of Representative Larson's motion with one qualifier. I believe he wants to leave 11 million in for federal funds because that would be matched regardless of the source.
Yes. Well, so if we, maybe, Mr. Chairman, so if we reduce it, whatever reduction you take on the general fund side, you'd take on the federal fund side, correct?
Mr. Chairman, I would not advise reducing the federal authorization. to the
Oh,
bank.
sure. Okay, got it.
So Mr. Chairman, we can support this. The jump to 100% of cost is a bit rich for our blood.
So,
Okay, all those in
Mr.
favor of the
Chairman,
motion?
so just restate the motion as I understand it is the recommendation is to further amend and would be to reduce 16,500 by 5,000 or 5,500,000 of general fund money. Is that the motion?
Of the reversion fund money, yes, in general
Of the
funds,
reversions or the new general fund? That's the
Reversions.
question.
reversions.
of the
Okay.
reversions.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to look at Don. Regardless of us shilly-shallying with various numbers, it's by half. Do you want to do that math now, or do you want to have time to work on it?
It's not half.
Mr. Chairman, it would actually be 1/4. And I think I can do that pretty quick. It would be 16,500,000 would
Mr.
remain.
Chairman, our intent is to reduce it by half.
No.
We don't want them to get them to 100%. We want them.
Time. We'll take a little break.
Sure.
Sure. Say aye.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, so the amendment was, as the good chairman and vice chairman pointed out, so we're going to reduce it by 5.5 million of the total funds appropriated and make the 5.5 be general funds, keep the federal funds at 11, and that's the amendment.
Yeah, everyone understand the amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
As amended.
As amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Now, we're going to page 2, line 51, continuing with Department of Health. Unit 471, page 30, Health, Indian Health Service, federal funding. Govs rec, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Going to unit 2501, page 35, Crisis Care Resource Coordinator. Govs rec, all those in favor say aye. Go ahead,
Move to further amend.
please.
Would amend, reduce the budget by $107,642 and eliminate the FTE with this.
As amended. All those in
Second.
favor and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Line 53, unit
Did we
2501.
vote on the amendment?
As amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Unit 2501, page 36, behavioral health redesign implementation. Govs rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
bringing up issues on this one that were discussed during the hearings. And you actually had the department go back and say, to the extent these behavioral health services qualify for direct ARPA funds, they should use those ARPA funds first.
Yes.
They did request that the general fund continue to be available as a backup.
So move to amend.
As amended, inserting that language. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. As amended again, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Going to unit 2510, page 42, preschool enrollment.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I believe there was also discussion separate from that, and there may not be interest in this for a potential amendment by a member to adjust the current footnote number 5. Am I on the right one? To expand the community choices waiver. I'm sorry, I'm not on the right one.
Never mind. Okay. Going down to line 54, preschool enrollment growth increases.
Mr. Chairman, Polly Scott, LSO. There is a issue for clarification here about there's different choices on the ECA to be discussed.
Mr. Chairman, we're just on the child count.
Yes.
We just need the
Oh, I
correct child
heard
count amount.
Child count, correct.
What is the correct child count amount?
New 5.
Mr. Chairman, there was an increase of 25 students.
So what is, tell me the dollar figure, Don.
Well, there are 3 different scenarios, depending on what you choose. You could do scenario number 1, which is the 25 kids and no ECA, which would be $207,000.
Oh, that's right. I recall that.
Scenario number 2 is
We need to
25
discuss
kids with the
ECA
Govs rep
first.
at
We need-
214,000 or 328. And then scenario number 3 is the full ECA as in the request, but not as recommended, plus the 25 new students, and that's $280,487.
What was number 2?
Mr. Chairman, that number 2 is the 25 new students at the governor's recommended ECA. So it kind of depends on 2 variables.
Mr. Chairman, we need to go back. We need to skip down one line and do the ECA.
No.
Well, we can't calculate the child count amount until we know what the ECA amount is. Isn't that what you just said, Don?
No.
Mr. Chairman, it is dependent on the ECA, yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, fair enough. Thank you, Senator Kinski. So if we go down the next line and adjust the ECA, then we would come back and adjust the child count amount. The increased child count amount to include that ECA amount. Is that how you're doing it?
Correct.
Mr. Richards?
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, I agree. Thank you. Line
Okay,
55.
let's go to line 55, preschool external cost adjustment. Unit 2510, page 43. Gov's rec,
Mr. Chairman,
please.
move to amend Gov's rec to increase the amount by $2,074,547 for a total of $4 million.
Moving seconded, discussion.
Senator Guru,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That amount, well, the total request of 11,034,000 represents all the ECA adjustments that have not been given over the past few years. What the amendment means is actually less than 30% of what has been of the ECA recommendations up to that point. So actually, it's just a recognition of a small increase, but a larger one than the governor recommended to 4 million. And that number, so in total transparency, that number is ongoing biannualized number.
Further discussion,
So, Mr. Chairman,
please.
I'm going to speak against the amendment. And at this point in time, would go with the Gov's rec of the 1.925 million for the ECA, because I think that'll translate back up into the next one on the child count placeholder, and we'll calculate that in up there and see some increase there. But at this point in time, I think we ought to just go with Gov's rec.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Representative Schwartz, Senator Guru, my heart is with you, but my wallet's not. I'm against it. I believe in the mission of the CDCs. I think we've taken pretty good care of them. This is a nice bump for them. And I think I need to stand on the governor's rec with Senator Hicks.
Senator Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one last word on this. I understand, but they haven't been, and they have had the tier 1, the tier 2 cuts. And this, frankly, the 1.9, I don't think does it. And more to the point, from a business perspective, every dollar that we put in this program now in pre-K education saves $7 per child per year in K through 12. If you actually gave the whole amount, it would save over $60 million. This would save only about, actually make us $10 million, but I thought this would be a number that might be suitable. But it's a number that makes us money. And so it makes good business sense. And so that's why I'm honored for the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
As amended.
As amended, all those in favor, say aye.
Make note of that one. Okay. As amended.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Wait a minute, we only had one vote for the
That's
EC
all I
as
need.
amended. I think you better get a decent vote on that.
Yeah,
All those voting for a decent vote, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Yeah,
those
ask for
opposed,
the
same
nose.
sign.
Same side, how many noes?
No,
No.
You're only
As
voting
amended.
on whether or not not on the amendment itself, but on the amended version.
yeah, we're voting on $4.9 million for ECA.
Don?
Mr. Chairman, we didn't want you to bypass the child count.
Right, we're going back.
We
up there.
haven't, so let's clarify what we just did, Mr. Chairman. You successfully, an amendment to substantially increase the ECA was adopted.
Correct,
Okay, and so then you called for the question as amended,
and that passed.
and well, I'd guess I'd like to have a show of hands on that.
Okay, we'll
Sounded
go
pretty
back to the
close,
show of
sounded
hands.
pretty close to me.
All those, show of hands on all those in favor of Senator Guru's amendment.
No, the motion as
Oh, yeah,
amended.
the
amended.
the motion as amended. Raise your hand. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Would you make a note of that one, Don, please?
Again.
As amended, all those in favor say aye. That motion carries. Now, back to
The pre-child count
Pre-child count,
has been
line-
determined by the amount of the ECA.
Who's conducting this?
So, Don, tell us what this does with our previous vote.
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be appropriate to vote or take a motion on the increased child count of 25 and then with or without the ECA. If you wish to have the ECA that was just approved, we'll have to calculate that. It'll be somewhere but around $250,000. I don't have the precise number.
Okay. So the motion is to approve the 25 student count. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. To adopt the ECA, all those in favor of adopting the ECA as
Mr.
previously
Chairman.
adopted, which is the equivalent to $250,000.
Yeah, we're not voting on an ECA, we're voting on the enrollment growth increase amount, correct? We already voted on the ECA,
Yeah, I think that's correct.
okay?
All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I can't support this with that substantially increased ECA in there.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No,
Show of hands. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? That motion carries.
if you'd make a note of that one, Don, please.
Going on to Department of Health, Division 2500, Unit 2510, preschool external cost adjustment. We just did that, didn't we?
Line 56.
Line 56, I'm sorry. Restore 2324 Wyoming Homes Services budget. Gov's rec. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Mr. Chairman, was there some interest in some language for a footnote there? From our colleagues in the Senate on.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I would amend that we direct the Department of Health to continue pursue a federal waiver for this program, including but not limited to the LTC option that the director described when he testified before us.
As amended. Everyone understand that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Going down, okay. Any further actions in Department of Health?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Representative Larson.
Mr. Chairman, I have three amendments I'd like to make in the Department of Health. One, Mr. Chairman, is the Medicaid provider rates were cut in a step 2 and in a step 3 reduction, each time at 2.5%. We have put in the 2.5% in the step 3, but the step 2 reduction has stayed in place with the inflationary pressures that we've seen. Those providers that provide services to Medicaid we're wanting some kind of increase, and the best way to do that would be to restore that 2.5% Medicaid reduction from step 2 in healthcare financing. That would increase the use of general funds by $164,536 and the same amount of federal funds.
We have a second. Okay, discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I had to vote for those cuts. Step 1, step 2, step 3. It was painful. And we came out of it. The director did not ask for this. It's not in the director's budget. And we're going backwards. We're going backwards here. This is how we get in trouble, is we keep putting back the cuts that were so painful in the first place. And I just can't support this. And you know, I suspect there may be more to come. So it all begins to add up. And that's all I've got to say, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Stiff.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question, but what's the exact number of the request?
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so it's $3,164,536 general funds and a like amount of federal funds. And Mr. Chairman, I think that we've seen those were painful cuts in step 2 and step 3. I think that for us to I think it's difficult to sustain that level of cuts ongoing in perpetuity. And I think that there's a time where you've got to adjust the provider rates in order to keep the services for this population. We've gone through, we're doing that with the rest of our state employees. We're doing it in a variety of other places because of inflationary pressures. And this isn't even adjusting for inflation. This is just bringing them back to what they were in 2021. So I'd encourage and I vote and support for this.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No,
Okay, that motion passes.
Don.
Further motion. As amended, all those in favor?
So, Mr. Chairman, the other, and I get it, members of this committee, there's a lot of money in the Department of Health. I would just remind you that 90% of the funds that are in the Department of Health go out for services. And one of the things that we put a freeze on was the ability to provide funds to take people off the wait list to get on the support and comprehensive waivers. And that list has grown to 537 people, most of which are under the age of 21. And of that total amount, there's 180 under the age of 21, 84 over the age of 21, and 17 over the 81 with acquired brain injuries who have been on the waiting list for over 18 months. I would like to reduce that waiting list by appropriating, let me get the right amount here, $7,511,278 general funds and the like amount from federal funds into healthcare financing.
Mr. Chairman, is that the biennial amount?
That's an annual.
So 14.
Yeah,
15.
that's an annual amount.
Mr. Chairman, question for the bringer of the amendment. What's the current budget in this program right now?
Don, do you have that? Or Kevin? While we're waiting for that number, who exactly does this benefit? Going to walk through.
So, Mr. Chairman, in the Department of Health under healthcare financing, there are the comprehensive and support waivers programmers or services provided to individuals with acquired brain injuries, developmental disabilities, and intellectual disabilities. The intent of the programs are to provide services and allow people to live in a least restrictive environment in their community and not required to be institutionalized.
Do we have a number?
Mr. Chairman, the current funding for this program is roughly 227 million. That's a combination of 124 million federal funds and about 102 million, 103 million all round.
That's the biennial number.
That is a biennial.
Mr. Chairman.
So this
227
will add
total.
that. This will add that number to be roughly 14 plus 14, correct?
Be an additional 15 million.
28
139.
million.
Mike.
Go ahead, Representative or Senator Greer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on and against the motion reluctantly. I too, would like to restore these. And I think all of us would. I know all of us would. And that's not the point today. I think that while I can't support this today, I think all of us want to continue to work with the department and with you, Representative Larson, and try to figure out a way we can come up with some sort of agreement that we can move forward. It's a big dollar project and like I say, I think all of us are, but I just can't support it today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, just a clarification, so this wouldn't be a restoration. This would be new funding, just so we're. Okay. The amount, Mr. Chairman, again, if I can find my right place, it was $7,511,278 general funds and a like amount of federal funds on an annual basis.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I'm with Senator Guru. My heart is with you. I understand these folks. I understand the needs. The history of this program is it was a waiver, was going to save money. And we came up with the waiver and the number of people on it just exploded to the point that this legislature and the department had to engage in substantial reforms of the program, grandfather everybody who was under the old program. Then when we went through the downturn the last time, we had to do some more things to try and get the growth and expense of the program under control. $227 million program that is supposed to save money. And these waiting lists, every time we fund drawing the waiting list down, it fills right back up. Draw the waiting list down, it fills right back up. And the department, as on the prior one, the department monitors the health of these providers. We heard him talk about that. He monitors the participation rate. And if there had been a concern, it would have been brought to our attention. We would have had an opportunity to review it with the department, consider all the evidence. And here it's at the 11th hour. It's just not something we can support, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would suggest that we're not even close to the 11th hour. We're still we still got round robin to go through and we haven't even started legislative session. And I think if we would want to table this and bring the Department of Health in to talk about this, it is a cost saving. If you put these folks in an institution, the cost per person is about double.
Mr. Chairman.
And when I finished.
Yeah, I'm
speaking,
sorry. I thought you were done.
And so the escalation, the wait list always has and always will increase. When you only fund part of it, then the wait list is going to grow until you fund it. And we've had to do that since we've put this program into place. Every so often we have to fund the wait list and get these people the services that they deserve in the community. As their lives terminate and those funds, when if I were one of those individuals and I passed away, those funds in there then goes back to fund somebody on the wait list, so that keeps coming back. Why does it continue to grow? Well, healthcare inflation. And so again, I know it's a big number. It's always a big number, and I appreciate the concern, and I appreciate frankly, I appreciate the compassion. And I mean that with all sincerity, because I know everybody here really is sympathetic to this. It's a hard decision. And so if you disagree, I know that it's not that you have an angst against those people who are trying to get services, but I just hope that you would consider funding this at this time.
Question.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Let's see a show of hands or something. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half. That motion carries. All right, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, my last one in health, in the Department of Health, I would, as we had the Department of Construction in here and we've contemplated these new facilities that we put in Evanston at the state hospital, and we have that old campus there. We've anticipated the need to fund the demolition for that. And I think we need to get started. I think it's wrong for us to put that off until it becomes a real problem. We owe it to the community to make sure we clean up our mess. And so what I would propose is that we take up to $15 million of the reversions that the Department of Health will have this year and put it in their budget for the demolition. allow the Department of Construction to have access to that for the demolition process at the state hospital.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Biennium.
just a question for staff. Would that go into the CapCon bill or would it stay within the Department of Health's budget?
Mr. Chairman, I think it would appropriately fall in the capital construction bill because that's the purpose of the expenditure for the funds.
We revert these reversions to the Department of Construction to perform them.
You could certainly do that first part in the operation, in the budget bill to revert the $15 million to.
I think that's.
Well,
the
Mr.
purpose
Chairman.
of-
Well, fine.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
You know, I think we're inclined to support something. I'd rather not use reversions. It clutters things up. We just do it straight up. And then I don't know about the whole 15 million now. What I heard him talk about, and Mr. Chairman, I heard you inquire and press him for details on, is he was talking about a staged demolition. I don't think he needs all the money right now. So some lesser amount that would cover it until the next budget session. You can advise us on the progress and what he needs next. I didn't hear him say he needed all that money right now.
So Mr. Co-Chair, that is correct. The benefit of this is by using these particular reversions from the Department of Health, we are directing the responsibility for the demolition of these because they are Department of Health facilities. And so it's a tie-in to it. And the process as this will unfold will be a sequential, the way that we heard the testimony from the director of construction management was that they'll do this in the most economic fashion and begin, and stage the demolition. You may recall they didn't tell us what the total amount was of the projected cost, but it's more than double this amount of money. So it's the point is, let's have the right agency responsible for it to do the demolition, and let's get the money started. We're going to have less money next year and less money the following year, so that means that we'll be less likely to fund the demolition. And so this is a unique opportunity to actually get this job done and to get it started. So I'm speaking in support of the motion.
But it's not a motion now.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my other thought was when I thought of this is these reversions are one time where they're not going to be carried. They're not.
So
and
I
they
think,
can revert
well, let's go back.
So-
The motion is to have these reversions from the Department of Health transferred to the state construction for the purpose of demolition of these facilities. That's the motion.
Sure.
Go ahead.
It'd be helpful since it's about lunchtime. If we got a more precise number from them. I heard them, if they come back and say, no, the 15 million is what we needed to really make a big start on this thing, then I'll respect that, but I didn't hear that. And maybe I heard wrong. It was a very wide ranging conversation over the course of several days.
So, Mr. Chairman, and fair enough, and you're absolutely correct if we stage it. But the sum total of the overall estimate is going to be about $25 to $28 million. And they don't have to use it all at once. And so I was putting it in there to where it be accessible. And then they could use that on an annual basis. But you're right, they don't need it all at once. I'm just trying to bank it for that purpose with one-time funds. So,
Go ahead.
I'll make a recommendation that we table this discussion, have lunch, come back and take this back up after lunch, give us an opportunity.
Sure.
I'd like to visit with the Senate side, and we can start here after lunch with that
That's
proposal.
a fantastic idea.
Great idea.
All right.
Greatest idea.
Don, before we break for lunch, anything else? Okay, the time is 12:15. We'll be back at 1:15.
Yeah, let's see. Do you know what we have?